And here's my screen. Okay. So when you first log into Qualtrics, this is what you should be seeing. This is your home screen. As I'm getting into Qualtrics, I almost always go to this, I talk about this main menu, or I'll call it the hamburger menu quite a bit. You can click on this hamburger menu, and you see different options that you have. These are the options that you should have. Depending on your access, you might have at least these options. So today we're going to be going over how to create a survey or a form. I'll use those words kind of interchangeably. Qualtrics was originally built for surveys, which is asking people about their experience, getting feedback about a certain experience. But in the public sector, we use Qualtrics quite a bit for forms. So filling out a driver's license form, or filling out a form to get a business license, something like that. There's a lot of forms across the state. I think you all know there are thousands across the state, and some of those forms are slowly being put into Qualtrics. And so we want to show you how to do that today, and to see if Qualtrics is a good fit for your situation. As I'm going through some of the tools in Qualtrics, there's a lot of features in Qualtrics, and I like to say this a lot, just keep your mind open to what I call the art of the possible with Qualtrics. If you're wondering, can Qualtrics do that? It probably can. And so it's just a matter of determining if Qualtrics is a good fit for your project or not. Don't worry about remembering every single technical thing that I say in this meeting, because again, it's a lot. There are a lot of just get the general idea, understand the art of the possible, and if you do have to dive into a project that requires that maybe you're not familiar with, that's where I'll show you where to go. I'll point you in the right direction. I'll give you the help pages you need so that you can build out your project. So as Jessica said, you won't be able to publish at this moment, but you can start creating your projects, and so that's what we're going to do today. So if you go, you can either hit create a new project right here, or from this hamburger menu, you can go to the catalog over here. When that page opens, you'll see that the project you can create is a survey project. So we'll go ahead and start there. So I'll hit get started, and I'll call this sandbox survey. Okay, and I can choose which folder to put it in. Some people are more organized than others, and so choose what folder you want to put it in. If you don't have a folder yet, you can move it later, that's fine. And there's some options right here, create a blank survey project. The other option that we use every once in a while is import a QSF file. We'll talk about that a little bit later. If there's somebody that you know who has a survey and you want to use the same survey, they can send you over what's called a QSF file. And it basically gets you the structure or the bones of the survey, so that you don't have to start from scratch. But I imagine a lot of you will be starting from scratch, so that's what we'll do today. As I go through some of these, I'm also going to talk about technically how it's done in Qualtrics, but also some of the standards and practices that the state of Iowa has agreed upon in order to make sure surveys look the best, have the correct accessibility standards, and have correct methodology. Just a little background. I worked at a survey company, Qualtrics, for over 3 years now. And so whenever I get a survey from Chick-fil-A or Delta or Home Depot or Nike, I always scrutinize it. And I am very judgmental. I want those surveys to look good. I don't want to see double-barreled questions. I want to see a font and a branding that matches Nike or Chick-fil-A, whoever survey I'm taking. And Jessica has done a really good job of putting all the tools in place so that we can have those accessibility standards met. So as we're going through this, I'll talk about some of those standards, and we'll talk about some of the tools that you have. So first of all, here we are in the survey builder. This is a brand new survey that I call the sandbox survey, right? It's pretty intuitive as you go through. Again, just click around, get to know Qualtrics a little bit. But you'll see over here in this area, this is the survey builder. Over here on the left is kind of our formatting panel. So when I say formatting panel, this is what I'm talking about over on the left, okay? So we can start with just some pretty basic questions. I'm going to start with, what is your favorite color? Okay, and I just typed it in there. And then down here, I'll put some of my options: yellow, blue, red. And then I want some more options, so I'm going to go over here to the formatting panel. I'm going to add another one and say green. Okay, pretty straightforward. This is a multiple choice question. Again, some things that I can do on the formatting panel will change depending on the type of question, but I can click on allow multiple answers, and you'll see that these radio buttons right here change from circles to squares. That means I can select more than one, right? I can also look at the alignment. I can have these be horizontal. I can have them be vertical. I can put them into columns and define the number of columns that I want. So determining this is one of our first accessibility type things. What's the best format? And it really depends on the number of options that you have. If I have 100 different options, then maybe instead of a list, I'll want to do a select box, or I can do a drop down. So for example, a great example of this is the counties in Iowa. If I have to select my county, I'll probably want a drop down for all 99 of those. That's more accessible. It looks better on the phone. We'll talk about how to make it look good for mobile as well. What I'm trying to show here is you just have formatting options over here on the left. So play around with those formatting options. Let's take a look at some of the other question types that we have. So this is my question number 1. I'm going to go ahead and add a new question. I can either click this button right here, add a new question, or I can click this blue plus button right here, and it will add another question. Now, let's say I don't want to do a multiple choice question. I want to do a free text entry question. I'm going to click this drop down right here, and I'll change this to text entry. And I'm going to say, why is that your favorite color? Okay. And then my respondent can start typing in their answer, why that's their favorite color. So again, we're hitting another accessibility point right here, and we'll talk about those and summarize them later. But we do want to limit the number of open text questions that we have in a survey, if we can, in a survey or a form. Obviously, for legal purposes, sometimes you have to have a bunch of text entry questions, and so it really is going to be a case-by-case thing. But as long as you can justify why you have all those text entry questions, and maybe tell us a little bit about your audience, who's taking the survey, maybe it's not a hugely public survey, then perhaps you can justify having tons of multiple or text entry questions. Things start to get flagged after about 3 open text entry questions. Again, you'll see over here that the formatting box, the formatting panel over here, the options are going to change. So for example, I can say I just want a single line, or I can say I want an essay type box, and I can change the size of this box. The reason we have that, this indicates to your respondent how much of a response you're looking for. So if I have a box this big, then that's telling my respondent, hey, I want you to write me a paragraph as to why this is your favorite color, even though I'm not actually saying it in the instructions. But if I change it to just a single line here, that indicates to my respondent, hey, I just want a sentence or a few words as to why you chose that as your favorite color. So again, you can go through here, look at the different response requirements, okay? Let's add another question here, and I'll just show you some of the other question types. We have a text/graphic. This actually is not a question at all. This is a great place to add a logo or to add instructions for your survey. I'm going to go ahead, you can click on this and move it up. Maybe I want to put this at the very top of my survey and call this instructions, okay? So I'll type it out. A great thing to include here is maybe how long you can anticipate the survey will take them. You know, if I say, hey, this is going to take you 2 minutes, then that helps them understand. That kind of sets their expectations and helps them, you know, continue to pay attention to your survey. So that's what the text/graphic question is. A few other ones over here. We have a matrix table. Again, I share this one because sometimes it's helpful for forms, for government forms. I'm not a big fan of this question type on the accessibility front, but I can say things like, I'm going to increase the number of scale points to 5. And for this one, I'm going to say strongly disagree. And you'll see that it's going to automatically populate some suggestions for me. Strongly disagree to strongly agree. And then I can write statements right here. Red is a powerful color. Blue is a submissive color, something like that. And people can indicate whether they agree or disagree, and it's done on a 5-point scale. Another methodology thing that I'll mention right here, and again, we'll summarize all of these. Whenever we have a scale like this, we want it to be an odd number because we want a neutral option for people, kind of Switzerland option that people can click on if they're right in the middle. So we always want to have an odd number, whether it's 3, 5, or 7. 5 is kind of what I see mostly. We also don't recommend putting a I don't know or a kind of a cop-out answer for these. Instead, we recommend just letting them skip the question if they absolutely don't want to answer it. So let's see, what else can we do here? Yellow is a happy color. I'll just add another one here. So again, this is a matrix question. Not my favorite. I would rather separate these into 3 different questions. The reason I do that is because some people tend to answer in what we call line item answering, where if I just generally agree that colors are great, then I'm just going to go through and click strongly agree to all of these, and I'm not going to read each individual statement. So in order to better keep people's attention, we like to separate those questions out, but it is an option. Let me look at a few of these other questions that are helpful. Form field, this one is great for if you're gathering demographic information. So for this option, I'll say, please provide information. And I might say first name, last name, let's see, email. And then I can add more, again, going to this formatting panel over here, phone number, okay? For this type of question, they're entering their data. Let's talk about validation a little bit. I'm going to click on this validation option. You'll see validation all throughout Qualtrics. And so we want to keep our data as clean as possible. We want to be mindful of the end product of what it looks like. And so validation helps us do that. For a first name and last name, it's hard to put validation around that, but email is a great example of how we can put validation on it. I'm going to click this drop down and say that it has to be a valid email address. If not, they won't be able to continue. This just ensures that the @ sign and a .com or a .gov is included somewhere in the email. It's not going to go check and see if it's actually a real email. It's just going to make sure that it's in the right format for an email. Same with phone number. I can do a valid US phone number here. This just ensures that it's 10 digits long or 9 digits long, that it's a phone number. It's not going to accept something like 00000000000. It's going to make sure that it's playing by the rules of the US phone number system. So there's a lot of other options that you can do here: a valid US state, a valid US postal code, a valid date. I can say I don't want any numbers in it. Or I can say I only want this one to be numbers. Just be mindful of where you're adding validation and not adding validation. Again, first name, last name isn't a great place to add validation. You could maybe for first name say text value only. I don't want numbers in here. I don't know what the rules are there, so we'll just say no validation for first name, last name. Okay, other common forms, other question types that you'll see on here are a calendar question. This one's great if people need to select a date. It gives you formatting options over on the left to say, I don't want anything before today, or I don't want anything after today. An example of that would be a date of birth. You would want to limit your calendar to not accept future dates if it's a date of birth. It's always going to be in the past. We have a slider question. These aren't always the most accessible, so just be careful about when you're using them. I've seen people use this to report like a temperature of a patient or something like that. They can use this slider question. You can, again, determine how many statements you have, whether it's bars or stars. I see this one actually a lot. You'll see this actually, if you go to iowa.gov, you'll see that we use the slider question, but we put it in the form of stars. This is a great way to use this question. This one is accessible. It's only 5 points instead of 100 points like the one I showed you before. And they just put it down to one statement here to show them what their experience is. This is a great question type, easy for people to understand, easy to collect some quick data, and it keeps people engaged. Some other important ones, I'm not going to talk about all of these, but we do have a file upload question. This allows respondents to upload a single file. They can only upload one file, so if they're needing to do multiple files, you might have to add instructions about how to create a zip file or add the file upload question multiple times. Again, be careful about what type of file you're asking for, as that could contain sensitive data. We'll talk more about that. We have the signature question. I'll provide some information about what the signature question looks like. That's actually on your DX training website, which we'll talk about today. But this is a great way to collect a signature to get consent. We always suggest that you talk to your legal team to make sure that this signature is sufficient. In many cases, I'd say 95% of cases, the signature is sufficient because it is collecting metadata from the user. So it can collect IP address. You can verify that this is going to the right person by having them authenticate into the survey, or have it sent directly to their email address, things like that. So there are a lot of things that we can do for this signature question to make sure we meet your legal requirements. Just make sure you understand those legal requirements before you add a signature question. Okay, last one I want to talk about is this CAPTCHA verification. This is the I'm not a robot type quizzes that you'll see. I fail these all the time because I don't know if the stoplight is including the some of the pictures or not. So, but you can't add this into your survey. Qualtrics already does a good job automatically of detracting bots from your survey. So I typically tell people not to worry about this. However, when we do start to see an increase in bots is if you're offering some sort of an incentive with your survey. So if you say we're sending out 100 gift cards randomly to people who have taken this survey, then that's when that kind of language is what attracts bots, and then you want something like this in it. However, if you don't have it, we have bot verification that does quite a bit of this already. So that was a very quick run through of some of the common question types in Qualtrics. I'm going to talk about a few other basic survey tools, and then we'll dive into how to make your survey accessible, how to have good methodology, and how to look at the theming of your survey.
Contour, can I interrupt you for a second? We have a really good question. Can you go back to the form field one? Can you talk about required responses? That would be something I think we want to talk about, the response requirements of adding the requirement to make sure they respond. So if you select question 5, if you want that entire question 5, you would have to force response. So I'm putting the hat on for Iowa forms. Most of those need to be required. So if you wanted to go to question 4, can you scroll back up and I'll just walk through this. If you wanted question 4 required, you would need to select question 4, and then he's going to scroll down and then go down to response validation and add a forced response. So again, putting the hat on for a form, most of your questions were probably going to need to be forced response. But if it's a survey and just trying to collect data and it's more optional, more than likely you will not need a forced response. Hopefully that answers that question. Add something, Hunter, if you feel like that was inaccurate.
No, that's great. I might add a little bit to it later as I talk about display logic. But yes, that's a good point. Forms, a lot of these are required for surveys. We don't always recommend turning on forced response. For survey, you want to allow them to skip because you're just trying to get as much data as possible to paint your picture, but that's not the case with forms. So thank you for mentioning that. We also have request response. This is a little bit lighter, where before they can move on to the next question, if they haven't filled it out, they'll get a pop-up window that says you haven't answered this question. Are you sure you want to move on? That helps, just remind people. It gets rid of the I'm skipping this question because I didn't see it camp, while still allowing people to skip the question if they don't want to answer it. So good call out there. Another time, like I said, that you might want to use forced response is if we're using display logic. So let's talk about display logic a little bit. Let's say I have this question, what is your favorite color? And if they answer blue, I need to know if they like light blue or dark blue. So I'm going to add another question here. And I'm going to say, do you like light blue or dark blue? Or I can say, which do you prefer, right? So it's trying to populate some answers in there for me. That's not what I want. So I'm gonna go over to my formatting panel, change this to 2, and give my options, light blue, dark blue, okay? And let's see, and now I need to add display logic, because if they click on red, I'm not interested in asking this question, right? So I'm gonna select my question number 7. You'll see it's selected because you see that blue line around the question. Make sure it's selected so Qualtrics knows what you're talking about. And I'm going to turn on display logic right here under question behavior. So it says, display this question only if the following condition is met. So my condition is based on another question. It's the previous question. So I'm going to say, okay, it's based on this question. What is your favorite color? And I'm only going to ask this if blue is selected. They have other choices like not selected or is displayed or not displayed. And there's my display logic. I can add additional requirements as well. I can use and or logic, or I can move it to a new logic set. I've seen people get very intense with these. I once saw one with 120 different pieces of logic in there. That was a little intense. So hopefully you can keep it simple. I think the simpler you can keep it, the better here. But this one is pretty simple. As long as blue is selected, then we'll show it. There's also an option for in-page. This just means that as soon as they click it, the next question will show below. And if they click out of that question, if I switch from blue back to yellow before clicking next, then the question will go away. I kind of like this turned on. It does limit your options up here a little bit. Like you can't use things other than questions. Like you can't use embedded data for your display logic. But you can still use questions, which is 95% of display logic is based off of questions. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that on, and you'll see this blue banner across the top that says that there is display logic associated with this question. So that's display logic. Next down here, skip logic is kind of the inverse of that, where let's say I am not interested in hearing from anybody who says their favorite color is green. I just want to move on. I'm going to use skip logic right here. And I'm going to say, okay, skip from this question to, and I can say which question I want them to go to, or I can say just skip them to the end of the survey if they select green, right? And you'll see right here, I can add multiple lines of skip logic as well. So if I want to kick them out of the survey, if they select yellow too, then I can just add another line of skip logic. I'll be honest, I think for almost, again, 95% of your use cases, you're going to use display logic. And so a lot of people start using skip logic because it sounds like what they want to do, but usually display logic is a better way to go about things. So I would err on the side of display logic if you're not sure which one to use. I'm going to go ahead and remove that skip logic. Okay, another option we have is carry forward choices. This might be if I say, what is your favorite, let me change this question to what are your favorite colors? And then I'm going to change it to a multiple select, so I can select more than one. And then I'm going to add a new question, and I'm going to say, okay, which of the selected is your absolute favorite? Okay, so now I only want to show the ones that they selected. And so for question A, I'm going to go down to carry forward choices. And I'm going to choose which question I want it carried forward from. And it's already kind of got it here. I want it carried forward from what are your favorite colors? Anything that is selected. So something that they've actually clicked on, and I'll hit confirm. You'll see these little green lines. And so now when I preview the survey, if I click blue, red, green, it'll only show blue, red, green. Here it will omit yellow. Okay, we're getting through it. We have just a couple more. Choice randomization. Hopefully that's pretty self-explanatory. This helps us avoid bias if we, I wish they did this on election ballots where everyone had a different list instead of them being alphabetized or however it is. But that helps eliminate bias. Not super important on a government form because there might not be bias. They might just be filling out facts. We also have recode values. That's a great example of that one is over here, strongly disagree to strongly agree. Maybe I want to recode my strongly disagree as a 1 and my strongly agree as a 5. If I convert those into numbers, then I can start doing arithmetic on them, average them out, and things like that. And then lastly, we have default choices. This is if I want to populate, for example, this box with something to get them started that they'll see. I can hard code it in. And so that there's at least something in this box when it's displayed to the respondent. So that's all of our question behavior. Again, I'm going through this quickly because there are a million features in Qualtrics. And so if there's something that you found interesting, I would recommend, let's see, let me think of one that might be interesting. I'll just do this display logic. I would recommend opening a new tab, going straight to Google, type in Qualtrics, and then type in whatever your question is. I use this on the daily. I honestly use this all the time. Brooke and Jim will tell you the same thing, that we just Google our questions because our SEO team has done a really good job of making sure that as long as Qualtrics is included in your search query in Google, that our help pages will be pulled up. So I'm going to type in Qualtrics display logic because I don't quite know how to use it. And sure enough, the very first thing that pops up is a Qualtrics help page. I'm going to open this up, and it walks me through step by step with annotated pictures of how to use display logic. So these help pages are amazing. I use them all the time. Gives you, again, step by step where to click. Even click number 1, click here, then click on display logic, right? So definitely use these help pages. They are wonderful. My team's information is in the way. Okay. So again, that's how you can look up things if you need additional help. Last thing I want to talk about before we move on to survey review is just typed text. In Qualtrics, we can create a dynamic survey taking experience. That's going to be, a lot of that's going to be covered in tomorrow's training, how we can create a dynamic survey taking experience, but I do want to cover one piece of it today. What I mean by that is every person who's taking the survey, they might have a different experience or they might be going down a different path, depending on how they answer the questions. So we have I'm going to take this question out. Remember, this is only displaying if they select blue. And then I have this question down here. It says, why is that your favorite color? This is not an example of a dynamic taking experience because everybody who sees this question, they're going to see it no matter what, if they answered red, yellow, green, or blue, right? And so we have a feature that you'll see all over the platform. That's why I wanted to mention it today, called piped text. So I'm going to take this out, and it says, why is that your favorite color? And instead of that, I want to put selection, your favorite color, right? So I want this to change based on whatever they put. And so we use piped text to do that. So you'll click on this piped text right here, and it says, okay, pipe this text in. We have tons of options. I can pipe in the current date and time because that's always changing. I can pipe in, different fields from, their email or something like that. Most commonly, we use piping in text from a survey question. So again, I'm going to say, okay, what is your favorite color? I think I took that one out, but what are your favorite colors? I'm going to say, oh, I'm sorry. I removed the question, so I want to make sure I click on the right one here. What are your favorite? We need to change this back to what is your favorite color. Sorry about that. And I want this to just be a one answer choice. Okay. So I'm going to go back here, and it was Q1. What is your favorite color? We're going to highlight this piece that I just typed in, selection. I'm going to highlight it, and I'm going to say, okay, from Q1, whatever their selected choice was. Okay. And you can see that it's piping in this snippet of code. If you're not a fan of code, join the club. I don't like coding either. And so don't be afraid of this one. This one's very simple. Piped text is usually initiated with a $sign and then this squiggly bracket right here. And then Qualtrics will understand this language. It's just saying, okay, from question 1, whatever the selected choice is, type that in. I'll go ahead and take out that selection. You don't have to type that selection, and I just kind of use it as a placeholder. So it's y is space. It's important to make sure you have your space in there. I see people do this a lot. That's a problem. You won't have the space. It'll just go is and then red without a space. So make sure you get your spaces in there. And then just leave that snippet of code there. And here's how we test it. I'm going to go over to this preview link right here, and I can preview my survey. We'll talk a little bit more about what the preview link looks like. But I see my instructions here. I see my logo has been brought in as well. Jessica's done a great job of making sure that your theming is 95% of the way there. There's still a little bit of theming that you'll have to do. And I can already see a problem with my survey. It says, why is blank your favorite color? It doesn't actually pipe it in. So that's something I'll want to keep in mind as I go back to the survey builder. When I click on blue, you can see that it says, do you like light blue or dark blue? But it's still not piping this in because Qualtrics hasn't had a minute to evaluate what people are clicking on. So I'm going to go ahead and exit right out of this preview. It's just a new tab, so I can exit out of it. And I want to put a page break right here, which gives Qualtrics the chance to reevaluate it. So I'm going to put a page break right there. That just means that my respondent needs to click next. And then I'll hit preview again. Okay, so now I see that that's the end of my page. What is your favorite color? I can select yellow. I'm going to do blue, and you'll see that my follow-up question, my display logic question, pops up right away. That's that in-page display logic that I talked about. And if I'm not selecting blue, then it goes away. I like light blue. And I hit next page. And then you'll see right here, why is blue your favorite color? So now my pipe text is working. That's exactly what I want because that's my shirt color. Or I could say something like BYU beat Iowa State. Sorry for those of you who were at that game. We're from Provo, that's why. Okay, and then I can test the rest of my survey out right here. Over on the right, you'll see what it looks like on mobile. This is one of the reasons I don't always recommend this matrix question, because they don't translate well to mobile. You'll see I have these drop downs right here instead of the actual matrix question, so it really separates it into different questions anyway. Most of your respondents, if all things considered, if it's a form, maybe it is more on the computer, but across the board globally, most respondents are taking surveys on their phones. So take a look at this mobile preview. If you're not seeing it, there's an icon up here where you can toggle it on and off. I keep mine on by default because I want to, I always want to keep in mind what people are seeing on their phones, right? So then I can continue filling it out. Okay, so that is the preview. I think that's everything I want to show you today about the Qualtrics building. So I'm going to jump into accessibility and some tools for that, some of our best practices. So Jessica has linked 2 articles, I think, in the invite. And one is called, sorry, my team stuff is in the way. One is called Ensuring Survey Compliance, a Guide to Passing the Review. This does a great job of outlining what is expected, talks about forms versus surveys, which we've talked about today, what you need to pass the review, accessibility, help text. So let's go look at that in the survey. If you need information about this, we have shared a survey with you. If you click on the hamburger menu and go to library, we have shared a survey in your library. You'll have a handful of libraries. By default, you will see 3 libraries right here. This first one is the Qualtrics library. Everybody in the world has access to this. You can pull questions like demographic data. We have very common questions that people are asking, so you can pull questions from that library. And then we've created a library for all Iowa users. So if you're in this account, you should be seeing this all Iowa brand library. And we have shared a survey with you under the survey section. It's called Making Great Surveys and Forms for Iowans. So you can copy this survey and it will add it to your account. It'll make a view only, it will make a copy of it, so you're not making changes to the statewide one. So go ahead and copy that into your account so that you can refer to this. And then lastly, while I'm here, I'll just say you have a personal library. If you need to upload things like a graphic, a logo, or something like that, you can upload that to your personal library as you're building it out. So in this Making Great Surveys, let's see if I can find it. You can search up here if you need to. Making Great Surveys and Forms for Iowans. This is a survey. We eat our own dog food here at Qualtrics. And so Jessica put this together. And it talks about what you need to check as you're making your survey. So the first is accessibility. You're going to want to look at help text. And so let me show you an example of that. Second. Let's go back to our survey that we're working on, the sandbox survey. So maybe down here I want to add some help text that says, what is your favorite color? And then slightly smaller, I want it to say, please select one, or something like that, just to give them additional context. So normally how you would do that is just hit enter here and say, please select one. But that doesn't change the size of it or anything. And so what we'll use is the rich content editor. I'm going to click on this right here. And you'll see that it opens kind of a formatting pane here. So when I do please select one, I want this to be smaller. And so your options are to change it. Your only option is to change it to 12-point font. Qualtrics will give you, as far as size, they'll give you a ton of different options. But in order to pass in our survey review and actually get your survey published, this will need to be 12-point. Now you see that it got bigger, which is not what I was expecting. I wanted it to be smaller. That's because this one is marked as default right here. and the default font is 14. And so it looks a little funky in the survey in the rich content editor, but when I close out of it, you can see that this one indeed is smaller. This is specific to Iowa. This is just how we've set up the theming. We've added a ton of CSS so that the font, let me go back to rich content editor. You don't have to select a font here. That's been selected for you. That already matches the Iowa branding, and the size has been selected for you, except in the case of help text. So when I say please select one, I want that a little bit smaller. If you need to preview your question without going into the full preview to make sure that that font was reflected correctly, you can click on these three dots and go to preview question. And I can see this is what it's going to look like with my font and my size. What is your favorite color? Please select one. Okay. Another thing to look at with accessibility is color contrast and emphasize text. I don't want to say pick your favorite. Something that would get flagged is if I highlight this and say, okay, I need this to be red. I'm going to bold it and put it in red. This is not accessible. And so rather than doing something like this, we recommend changing it back to the default and saying something like note, pick your favorite. So using things like note or attention, something like that is more accessible than putting things into colors. Let's see what else we have. Alt text. Anytime you have an image in a survey, when you go to upload that image, there will be an option to add alt text. Let's see if I have any images in here. Maybe in the instructions, I want to add a logo. So I'm going to go to my rich content editor and say, okay, I want to add a logo in here. It's going to pull from my library. Jessica has a few images saved in here. I'm just going to use this one. And you'll see that I have my logo right here. And so if you right click on it and then click on image properties, right here, alternative texts, you need to put a description of what that image is. That helps with screen readers for people who are blind. They can use the screen reader, and the screen reader will read this alt text and tell them what this image is. So we're going to check that as well on your survey. Just make sure that you enter that alt text right there. Close out of that. Okay, going back to this page. Spelling, check your spelling. Hopefully your web browser has a built-in spell checker that you can use. Expert review. When you go to publish your survey, if you hit publish right here, it's going to give you an expert review right here. And you can click on this view recommendations. Right now it's saying, okay, optimize your questions for mobile. That's because I have that matrix question in there, I'm guessing. If I go right here to Q4, yeah, it's saying this isn't great for mobile. So I'm going to go back to my expert review and look at other recommendations. Number of text entry boxes. I do have that form filled question. And so each one of those is a text entry box. So it's going to tell me that affected question right there. It's saying maybe add the bot. Again, this is a suggestion. This is not something you have to do. Personally, I don't want to add the bot detection on this one. And then it checks things like your display logic. It doesn't do an exhaustive check, but it's just making sure that when there's a display logic, that the question that is needed in order for the new question to display actually exists. But it's up to you to make sure that the display logic is set up correctly. So this expert review is great before you actually send your survey to publish. We recommend going through that expert review. And I do recommend this page that Jessica shared. I'm going to be using it all the time, I assure you, because it's a great checklist. And then I also mentioned that other survey is a great checklist as well. The Making Great Surveys and Forms for Iowans. This talks about each one of those. Talks about how to do help text, alt text. not using red text, using no or important spelling. And then we get into methodology. The expert review will look at methodology a little bit. For example, my matrix question is more of a methodology thing rather than accessibility. But things like double-barreled questions, you want to avoid those. Methodology is also, making sure that your strongly disagree is on the left and your strongly agrees are on the right, and not flipping those, making sure that you have 5. That all falls under methodology. A lot of that will be picked up by the expert review. Hyperlinks and URLs within surveys. This is an important one to look at. Let's say, okay, pick your color guide, and maybe I want to say use this color guide. I'm going to go into my rich content editor, and maybe I want a color guide to be linked to something. I can hyperlink this. We see this a ton in government forms, where I put in the URL. I'm just going to say Google right here. But be sure to click on this target tab right here, and it says target not set. And what you'll want to do is click on new window. Nothing drives me more crazy than when I'm in a survey on my computer and I want to click on a link to reference something, and it replaces my survey tab with whatever article I'm supposed to reference to help me fill out the survey. It replaces that tab, and then I have to go find that survey link again and reopen it. So we always want hyperlinks to open in a new window so that I can tap back to the window that I was on previously and continue taking my survey. So this is one that both your respondent and you as a data collector will be thanking you if you change this to new window. So I'll hit OK right here. Let's see. Jessica, is there anything else? I think a lot of them can go to this page and find all of these options. I wanted to cover some of the big ones, but is there anything else you would like to cover before I move on to security?
Can you go back to the sample? And I really encourage you, the sample that is in your library, and I encourage you to take that sample. So if you go back to that, it pretty much, it is like one that you just go through. Oh, I checked my hyperlinks. Like, it is a great one to even mess with, right? You can actually go in that with your own copy and mess with it, right? I do want to make sure we hit branding and theming before we end as well. But just to set the stage, it's, as you can see, this review process is to make sure that we hit the accessibility guidelines. It does a really good job. We're already 2.1, but there's always the human factor. Branding and theming is important from the governor's office down to make sure that we have that same look and feel, but also for security reasons, it's a good constituent experience that provides them trust. And then the paragraph styling is really important, not only for accessibility, but it gives that same look and feel. And really, once you do this, it's a rinse and repeat process. And once you understand the little nuances, it's really nuances, but understanding the process, it's not that hindering. So I just want to make sure you understand a little bit more of the why. But I do want to make sure you hit the branding and then the security question, because we have received that, and social security number and what shows up on that. Was that where you're going to go, Hunter?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. Thank you.
Hey, all right, so we'll hop into branding over here. So on the left, I was in the survey builder. Actually, let's go back to our sandbox survey. I'm in the survey builder right here. I'm going to go over here to the look and feel. And again, Jessica has done a great job of setting up all the themes. And so based on the agency that you are in, you will see that this is a training account. So I do see things like blind, gas. I see dials in here as well. And then you'll see Okoboji afternoons, Manawa mornings. I think there's Iowa nights. Okoboji afternoons and Manawa mornings are the two most popular ones in your state. So talk to whoever your branding person is and say, hey, which one of these should I be using? And you can toggle it. What this does is it changes things like the next page button from this teal to this blue. And it also adds the logo, your agency's logo. Let's go to the top. These are not loading for me right now, but adds the agency logo at the top, which is important so that people know which agency they're in and they know that they're taking a state of Iowa survey or form. So you shouldn't need to change these. themes at all. Jessica's got them all set up. Just select the one that you want. As far as next and previous buttons, we've determined as a state we want to be consistent. Jessica, remind me, is it next or next page?
It's next and back. And
Next.
that was decided, just for those that don't know, the DX steering committee is the one that makes anything that's public. They make those decisions. It's not a Jessica decision. It's the DX steering committee. And they help decide certain consistent messaging, and they want the next and the back. And they also want to have that consistency when it's public. Yep.
Thank you. I forget, but that is all on these pages that Jessica shared. So even I forget them. That's why I'm going to refer to those pages often. Down here, you'll see the progress bar with text. I can see at the bottom, you'll see how far in the survey I've gotten. We don't recommend putting this unless you have a long survey. It's like 30 questions. It should go at the bottom. And so there are a few things that you can adjust here. But for the most part, your theming, your font, your sizes are all in there. You'll just need to make sure that this says next and this says back.
One more thing on that page. Can you scroll down to the title? One thing that's best practice, and is one of the things that we will review, is the header. We want to make sure you have a title of the form. So can you go to header? And you should always have a header, because when they go through the survey or the form, they know what they're on. So put the title of that. And again, great job in the chat. You guys understand that paragraph styling is important. So you'll want to make sure, and Hunter's going to go back for me and make that a header 1. But he's going to go and select edit. Any title that you do should always be the format of header 1, because that again follows that accessibility guidelines, and it will then be in the right heading format. Thank you. Thanks. I'm getting you trained too there. Go, very awesome. Thanks, Hunter.
No, thank you. There's a lot to keep straight. We get it. So hopefully these check boxes will help. Jessica is like my live checkbox person. I always run things by her to make sure that they're in the right format. And I'm grateful for it, because Iowa surveys look great. Like I've seen other surveys and they're just terrible from other companies, but Iowa's always have, you guys always have great surveys. So it's good that we talk about these things. Okay, and then let's quickly talk about security. Leave here. We need to be mindful about the type of data that we're collecting. And so if I were to add a question right here and I'm asking for sensitive data, like what is your social security number? You'll see that it gives me a little light bulb right here. And we flagged certain words. And so that if you do ask something that looks like it could be sensitive data, we'll put a warning right here. You'll have to, if you absolutely need that social security number, you'll have to explain why. We'll talk about in tomorrow's training what the review process looks like and how you kind of explain, well, I need my social security number for this reason. But I can have people say, why do you like that color? And then they'll do the help text. I won't do it for now, just for sake of time, but they'll say, please do not include any personal information such as social security number. We've had this pop up before. This is going to get flagged too, because I said social security number in my prompt, even though I'm saying do not include social security number. It's still going to get flagged, just so we can look at it and make sure that it really isn't asking for that. So something like this, you'll see this and you can just say in your review, hey, I'm not really asking for that, and we can still publish the survey. So again, I know we're up on time. Tomorrow, we're going to continue talking about this. We'll talk about the review process. We'll dive deeper into survey flow, how to build your survey, how you can look at the art of the possible with Qualtrics and see if something is a good fit for the form that you're trying to fill out, and where to get help. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jessica. Again, before tomorrow's training, I highly recommend diving into Qualtrics, getting into your account. Go ahead and create a sandbox survey. You can't publish right now. We'll talk about that tomorrow, but you can't publish, but you can still create a survey and you can preview it. I just want people to be familiar with Qualtrics so that when we do unfreeze our publish freeze, you can get in there and have your forms ready to go. But Jessica, anything you want to add?
No, I just encourage to definitely go to the library and grab that survey and just make sure the purpose of making sure you understand the review process is just that we want to expedite. We don't want to hold you up on that as well. So make sure that you look at that, maybe practice those things, get familiar with it and make it a habit. Again, our goal is not to big brother at all. We just have to be conscious of certain things such as security, accessibility, and theming. And so it should be like, oh, I know what I'm doing and going that way. So the expert review is also there to help you. It flags you things that are maybe not the best thing for you, for your survey to be the best survey, right? And so it's tools for you to make the best surveys and forms in Iowa. Jason,
Welcome. This is a short tutorial on how to ensure survey compliance and a guide to passing the review. I'm currently on the DX training website, and you will find a guide to walk you through what is expected to pass the review. Please keep in mind, the purpose of this guide is to make sure we have the best surveys for the state of Iowa. Also to make sure that we meet the accessibility, methodology, theming and branding, and security compliance. Let's go ahead and take a deep dive inside Qualtrics and walk you through this process. But I do encourage you to use this guide as it is ever changing as we continue to launch Qualtrics. I'm currently logged into Qualtrics. You can access Qualtrics through login.iowa.gov and click on the Qualtrics CX tile. Once you get into Qualtrics, go ahead and make a survey. Go ahead and click on the hamburger at the top left-hand corner, select Projects, and create a project. And then select Survey and click Get Started. Go ahead and name the survey. And then I would go ahead and select it from Use Survey from the library. Now, make note, this is only for you to get access to the library item that will guide you through the checklist. This is not the normal process when you're creating a nurse survey. Most of the time, you'll always want to create a blank survey project. But for this demonstration, and for you to get access to the sample guide in the library, go ahead and select Use Survey from Library. Then you're going to select All Iowa Brand, Library, and select from Survey, Make Great Surveys and Forms for Iowa. So again, this is not the normal process as you create a survey. However, for this demonstration and to get access to this guide book within Qualtrics, go ahead and create project. Once you have your own survey, go ahead and we're going to walk through some of these important items as we review it in the review and approval process. Accessibility is a very important topic, and especially on your public forms. One of the things we want to look at is your help text. We do not want help text smaller than anything less than 12. 12 is the size that we have selected to meet the accessibility requirements. So in this example, you see the help text is at 12 font size. To adjust it to always be at 12 font, you would just highlight your help text and select 12 point. However, do not change normal or font in this example, as we will use the CSS styling that has been created for you to match your theming and guidelines. It does look a little bit different inside the rich content editor. No worries, don't spend time messing with this. Go ahead and click out of your rich content editor and select on the three dots of your question and select Preview Question. This will give you a look and feel of what you'll see as the constituent experience will see that it looks correct in this view. So it's got the 12 font and our default question type is 14. Let's move on. Alt images. We always need a good alt image. Alternate text. So in this case, that image has already been uploaded. I'm going to go ahead and select the rich content editor, select the image, highlight the image, right click, and select image properties. Once you select the image properties, it is always required to have an alternate text inside that image. So again, good practices to always have an alt text. Moving on, color contrast and emphasize text. It is not good practice to use bold and underline to emphasize a text or red text. Why? Bold and underline makes it look like a hyperlink. And if it's not a hyperlink, it is very confusing for the constituent. Red text is not a good color choice for visibly impaired. However, use words such as note or important to emphasize any text. And again, you can always adjust your text by inside your rich content editor. Again, note and important is the recommended option. You can bold, but do not bold and underline. The other thing is always make sure your spelling is correct on your form or survey. You do have a web browser built-in spell check. To do so, you'll notice in this example, the word check is spelled wrong. You can actually right-click on that squiggly red line and select the proper spelling for that word. Moving on to the expert review. There is an expert review within Qualtrics will help to make sure that you are passing compliance scores as well. So this is a really good tool that's within Qualtrics. You can access the expert review up at the top right-hand corner and select expert review and select your score. You can also find it in the publish option. You'll be able to click on your score as well. But in this case, I'm going to go ahead and select expert review score, and you will see that there is some warnings on this particular survey. Our goal in this expert review is to see pass. There are some exceptions to the rule. However, again, this is a really good tool that we want to see. So make sure that you are understanding the error messages that you're receiving in the expert review. Device review. We strongly encourage that all forms should be in a good mobile device option. Now, there are some exceptions. However, if it's a public form and it's on a website or going to constituent experience, most of the people will complete a form via mobile. So in your preview option under the top right-hand corner, you always have the option to preview your survey in a mobile-friendly way. So it's always good to view your survey in a preview in the mobile option here as well. You will also find in the expert review, it will tell you if it's mobile friendly as well. So again, use that expert review. Moving on to methodology. Same thing, you have two expert reviews. You have the methodology score and the survey score. Again, emphasize we want you to pass. There are again exceptions to every rule. However, this is a really good learning tool for you to make sure that your survey methodology is good and that you have no survey error score. End of survey message. Make sure that your end of survey is clear and customized so the constituents know exactly what to expect for. You can see in this example, if I scroll down, you will see that I have, all the way down, I have a really good example that I'm giving an expectation when the constituent fills out the survey. They know what to expect. I'm supposed to be getting a response in 2 to 3 business days. Please do not use the general message. Again, constituents need to know what takes place. When you make a customized end of survey, make sure that it's a 14-point. You do have to change the font to do so. So inside here, you will want to make sure that you have a good customized message to give a constituent a good experience. Again, hyperlinks inside the form or survey. This is a big no-no. It will break your survey if you do not do this properly. In this example, you'll see that I have 2 hyperlinks directly here. If I go to the rich content editor, it is what we're expecting. We will be checking for this because it will break your form if you do it properly. You can always hyperlink a resource in the form, but make sure you always have the target set to new window blank. Again, make sure you have a new window blank. If not, when you test it, you will find it will not work properly. Same thing with email. Do the same thing, open into a new window. Great example. Branding and navigation, very important. These decisions were made by the DX Steering Committee, and we strongly encourage you to follow these as it gives a good, safe, secure constituent experience. So first thing, make sure you have a display name and a survey description, and a title of a survey, and next and back buttons. Let's go ahead and talk about those 3 items. On the left-hand side, you will find there is a look and feel, the paintbrush. Click on the look and feel, and this is where you can select your theme. So again, find your agency acronym and then select Okoboji Afternoons, Manawa Mornings. You will know what type of website color you have is the one that you should select. Otherwise, always default to the Okoboji Afternoon, which is that teal green. Find your, find your agency name or division, and you'll be able to find it there for you. Again, then select General. We always want the next button to say next and the back button to say back. That was a decision by the DX Steering Committee. Again, paragraph styling is really important to be accessible. So we also want to make sure that you have a good title that appears on every portion of the survey. So if you have 5 pages on your survey, we want to make sure the title appears throughout your survey. So to do so, go ahead and go to your header, select Edit, type in your title as shown here, and make sure it's at heading 1. Again, do not adjust the font or size, as the CSS styling will automatically do so. Let's go ahead and select to motion. We do not like the page transition as it's not as accessible, so please choose no page transition. Moving on, we're going to go down to the bottom and go to survey options. This is another requirement under branding and navigation. We go to survey options, always have under general, make great surveys and forms for Iowans. In addition, make a good survey description. Why? This provides a good, safe, and constituent experience to know exactly what kind of form or survey they're selecting on, and give me a highlighted survey description. This is a really good tool to use. This will help your constituent experience. If you go over to responses, there are times and there are not times to use the back button. We will help and guide you on that. But if it is a very generic survey, the back button is a very useful tool. Moving back to the survey builder to go through our list, is we've already talked about these items. We're going to go to the paragraph styling. There are times that you might need a subheader. Please go ahead and use the paragraph styling of header 2 if you have a subheading, and etc., header 3, and etc. However, keep in mind your title is always heading 1. And again, we always want you to use the default font and do not change the font unless it's been guided inside this guidebook. Moving on to security. There are times that you will need to collect a social security number or highly sensitive information. No worries. If you do have a security question that might be flagged just like this one, and how do I know it's flagged? Over the right-hand side, you will find a light bulb, much like this, and you will see the light bulb gives you a nice little warning. This is part of the review process. This is also indicating maybe, do I need to say that word? Do I need to collect that information? This is part of data stewardship. We want to make sure you're only collecting what you need to collect, and this gives you an additional warning. There are some keywords in the back end that will flag us to make sure that we are setting up things correctly on the back end. Now, there are times, like you said, you need to collect this. We just ask that if you are collecting sensitive information and you see this warning either in the question type or in the expert review, and let me show you that one. If I go up to the expert review, in your Listen, Understand, Act intake, this is important for us to know and indicate this so we do not redact your information that you do need to see. So it's very important that you do show us that and inform us in the intake. So again, you can collect it. That is not the issue. We just want to make sure that we set it up correctly. In addition to this example, again, not required, there are some best practices, such as form best practices, survey design best practices, survey scales best practices. Please refer to them, as our goal is to make excellent, great surveys and forms for the state of Iowa. So with that, please make note of these additional things to assist in your process as you build your survey. With that, I hope this quick video will help you, guide you, and to be able to pass the review in flying colors. With that, thank you for your time.